helpful. Sometimes there's some business rules. You got to make sure you got the right document to go in at the right time and all that. Super good information. We have Melissa and Melanie who are going to present to us. They've been working with this staff for about a year or so.
Close to it, maybe.
Yeah, or so, with much tears, because obviously this is a change, right? But you guys will really love it. I like it. I've seen the system. I've been around it with a little bit. So it's good information. Did I get that kind of a good overview?
You're perfect.
Awesome.
Absolutely great.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys. Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate you taking time out of your super busy schedules to be here. So we're going to do a quick little refresher. I feel like maybe next time you can teach. We're going to do a quick little refresher, and we're going to go over just some of the stuff you already have. So really just to kind of help you mind meld and tie everything together in what's new in Backagent versus what you've already had. And then we'll kind of shift gears, and I'm going to actually jump out of your live site. So this is your actual live MyKW intranet site into a little bit more of a training kind of dev site. It'll look the same to you, really, but I don't want to put up on screen actual personal deals that people have going on and then add training data, into your live site. So Melanie is going to kind of drive the computer for us today. She's also going to kind of be noting mentally questions that come up that maybe are going to take some more time afterwards if we want to kind of hang out, a few of you, and go over some questions. But really, with that, we'll kind of jump in. I know a lot of you have laptops in front of you, and if it's absolutely necessary that you have it open, okay. But if not, really this is better when you can just really kind of, absorb and be in it and not distracted by, emails and things like that. Okay, so with that said, we'll jump in. So as I said before, this is your MyKW Market Center intranet. You guys have had this for years. So as long as you've been with KW 6, 7, 8 years now, maybe 8, you've had this system, right? So this is where all of your intranet or kind of office or market center stuff lives. So this front page, this postings page, this is all live. This is you guys posting about haves and wants and vendor recommendations, things you may need. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit. Up in the very top, this header bar, you'll notice that we've added a few new tabs. So the listings tab and the transactions tab. We're going to get into those in a minute. That's the new stuff. So this is just a quick refresher. Melanie, would you jump into the Market Center for us? So the Market Center is where kind of all of the office stuff lives. So this is where you book conference rooms, maybe sign up for a floor time or a property time type of situation. But I want to focus on the calendar first. So the calendar, when you click and view this large calendar, which I imagine you've all seen multiple times, you have a new section here called Transactions. So something you've probably not done before is subscribe to that calendar. So the really cool thing now, maybe you've already subscribed and you've got some of the training stuff showing up. Maybe you have not, and that's okay too. But I'm going to highly encourage you to make sure that you come and subscribe to this calendar, because as you create transactions, and you'll clearly see when we walk through this in a few moments, everything that is date driven is going to show up on this calendar for you. So it just makes sense to click the subscribe button and walk through so that that information is also on your Google Calendar, on your iCloud, your phone, whatever it is you check more frequently or mobilely. So you're definitely going to want to click subscribe. The only one you're really super concerned with is this My Events. That's personal stuff to you. Things you've registered for, so classes you've registered for, conference rooms you've booked, floor time you've signed up for, and ultimately due diligence events. So all of those transaction events. Now you have some option to sign up for other calendars like office events and things going on that maybe you haven't registered for, and that's great too. But at a bare minimum, definitely make sure you get that My Events subscribed to so that you get that information mobilely. All right, really quick, we'll click on Resources. And resources, you're probably already familiar with this, so that's the booking of these. I just kind of wanted to showcase again where those are at. So those are your conference rooms, that's your floor time, your desk duty, anything like that that you have going on. You have a document section as well. And this is a repository. So this is full of all of the important documents and information that you may need that you're not necessarily going to pull from Truck or HAR or Dotloop or Zip Forms or something like that. So this is all proprietary in-house. Market center docs, resources, safety policies, probably, it looks like sample contracts, so probably annotated contracts that you can kind of get in if it's a new one. As he was saying earlier, maybe it's a lease and you just want to look over an example one again. So it looks like they have that loaded with all of those sample kind of contracts and things for you. All right, and last but not least here, we'll talk about the inbox. Do we have inbox set up for them, Melanie? We should. Okay, so you also have the ability to create an inbox address. So mine is this Backagent support at sendtobackagent.com. This is just another way to get documents into Backagent quickly. Now we're going to go through tons of ways to do that, and I'm definitely going to slow things down when we get into transactions, but I want to make sure we have a lot of time for that section. But this is another way to get documents in. So this is basically like, think of it almost like an email address, but that you never give to anyone other than you or your partner or your coordinator, because it's not capturing the body of a message. It's not going to work like a Gmail or an Outlook. It's simply grabbing attachments. So real world example, you're driving, you get out, you go to a listing, you sit in the car, you check your phone, right? You're going to immediately check and see what's come in. Someone has sent you a document that belongs in a file. It didn't come through DocuSign, it didn't come through Dotloop, it's just sitting in your inbox. But you know it belongs to 1234 Smith Street. You can now say, forward that to Michelle at sendtobackagent.com, best realtor ever at sendtobackagent.com. So whatever you set up, and now that document is gonna sit here and already digitized, kind of in a holding bin for you. So in the evening, when you're ready to pop open the laptop and actually work on a file, you don't have to go back to your email, find it, save it to a desktop, and then wait for it to upload. It's just already there for you. Grab it, click, drop it where it belongs, okay? So that's another really cool thing to do in the intranet that is kind of outside of transactions, but really does tie back in. All right, so we'll kind of leave the intranet here. We'll quickly touch on a couple other tabs that you guys have. There's a Learn tab. You've always had this Learn tab as well. So it's linking to training. You can see John there as an instructor. You can see calendar dates that have training. You guys have training almost every day, so your calendar is going to stay pretty green. But you can see the upcoming classes, things that you're registering for. So this is really just kind of a culmination of everything that's already in the system, just showcased in one spot. So if you're ever just like, what's going on, or I need to find a trainer, I need help, or something Learn related, click to the Learn tab, bam, everything should be there for you, or it should link you where you need to go, okay? All right, so before we kind of shift gears, I'm not gonna talk about Promote and Associates right now, but before we kind of shift gears, any general questions about the intranet that maybe you've just kind of had burning before we kind of really start to dive into the new stuff? Nope? Okay, great. All right, so the first tab that we'll talk about is the listings. Let's show listings in theirs really quick since I don't have it in this one. Okay, so we'll click on the listings tab. So this listings tab, this is a feed coming in directly from HAR. This is not your transactions. These are listings. So I want to really make sure that you have that clear and not say, well, I can see my listing there already, so I don't need to start a transaction for it. No, you still do. So transactions in Backagent's world are everything, whether it's a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, maybe it's just a referral, in-house, outgoing referral, whatever it happens to be, that's a transaction, and you're going to go to the transaction tab and actually walk through a workflow process. This listings tab is just simply a feed coming in directly from HAR. Now, if you click here, you should be able to click on your personal listings, which we won't have any, obviously, and see those. If you don't see those for some reason, you definitely need to get with management here so they can make sure that your profile is set up correctly. Got to have your pub ID, license information up to date, that sort of thing. The other caveat here is that we get a refresh from HAR into our system somewhere between like 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. So if you go to a listing presentation, they sign on the dotted line, you come in, pop it into HAR, and then jump into Backagent to create your transaction, it's not going to be there yet. It's kind of the following morning is when we get that refresh. We're actually working with HAR, hoping we can get that data, a little faster than that, or maybe multiple times. But right now, that's kind of the limitations with RETS data, really across the board, across the country. So anyway, so you've got the listings tab. Now you've got brokerage listings. That's showing you everything else that is tied to this market center. And then you've got all IDX. Now, definitely not meant to take the place of Tempo or whatever it is that you guys are using now. I know that's kind of gone. But this is a great way to quickly load properties into your transaction. It's also great if you're working the front desk and the phone rings and someone says, hey, I need some information on this listing. And if it's a KW listing, great. It's a little easier to find. But if they ask you about the one across the road and they don't even know which street they're on, and all they can give you is a street number, you've got this wide range to start narrowing down. Where here, you can just quickly kind of filter to what you know has your sign in the yard, and it's going to make that a little faster. So it's just a convenience factor, but really tied in for the transaction piece. All right. So now we're going to shift gears into the new stuff. So nothing to do on the listings tab, just kind of there, right? All right, so we'll click over to transactions, and we're going to do this in kind of our dev site here. All right, so let's talk about what this view is first. When you click on the transactions tab, you're going to see a list of your deals, your transactions. If you haven't put any transactions in yet, you're not going to see anything there. But I want to show you an example of what that would look like. So along the left-hand column of the screen, and actually, can you click to the managed ones? Do we have any managed ones in there? No? Okay, that's fine, because I wanted to show some photos, but that's okay. All right, so what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen is site of representation, and ideally, you would see a photo, right, because it's tied to the IDX. So you'd see a photo of the property, and you'd see, is it a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant. That's just to quickly give you that visual, or if you have a coordinator working with you or someone that logs in on your behalf, they can quickly say, oh, okay, that's a buyer file, that's a listing type of thing. This center section here, if you want to scroll up just a little bit, Melanie, there we go. This center section here, I like to call this kind of the meat and potatoes of the file. So this is the address, who the client is, if a closing is scheduled, just kind of like, where am I at? What's going on with this particular deal? Who are these people, right? And then over to the right, the far right here, is the phase that it's in. So you'll get really comfortable with the compliance workflow phases. They're really simple: start, showing, contract, pre-closing, post-closing. So kind of how we all think in our head already. But this is going to quickly show you what phase is it in. Is this one already in pre-closing? Is this one under contract? Is this one really early in the start phase? Maybe I'm representing a seller, and I don't have anything more than a listing agreement right now, okay? And then last but not least, on the very edge, you do have a little snapshot here. So if you ever just need that like printed version of it and you want to click, when you click on the snapshot, if you want to click on that really quick, it's going to actually open another tab for you, and it's going to pull up kind of a one-pager with the photo. You'll see a photo that says, here's everything going on this file. Here's the financial end of it, the buyer, seller, both sides. Really pretty much anything you've typed into Backagent or pulled in from the IDX is showing here. So if you just started this file and it's a listing and all you have is the listing agreement in and maybe the list price, then this page is a lot smaller, right? So it's going to grow. So I don't recommend you printing it constantly because every time you do something in Backagent, it's changing, but you do have that capability. So we always get that question is, where can I print something? Yes, sir?
So is this working
This
with
is, and we'll get into the Dotloop, tie into that in just a little bit. Okay, so we can close out of that. So this is your view when you click on, scroll back down just a little bit for me. This is your view when you click on transactions, showing you your active transactions. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to create a transaction. And I'm going to take this really slow, step by step. Before we jump into this, the one thing that I really want to point out to you is that we're about to do this in over the next, maybe say 15 minutes, with me talking, someone that does this all the time, and walk you through it. In real life, that's not how it's designed, right? It's designed to be 2-3 minutes every couple weeks maybe, especially on the listing side, because not always a lot happens immediately. So I don't want you to think in your head, every file I have every day, this is like 15, 20 minutes. It's not. It's literally, how many deals do I have going on? A couple minutes here, something changes a week or two later, I jump back into Backagent, I make a quick adjustment, maybe add a document and move on. It should literally be minutes on each file, and each file shouldn't take more than about 20 minutes spread out over the course of 6 weeks to 3-4 months, however long you have that deal alive, okay? So keep that in mind as you're going through. This is not all day, every day, 20 minutes with every deal, okay? All right, so we're gonna click to add a transaction. And remember I said earlier that everything in Backagent is considered a transaction. So Backagent is the compliance engine, right? So this is what's making, hopefully, staff, MCAs, Maryland, this is making their life easier. It's making the brokerage compliant. It's making you compliant. So it's kind of everyone's CYA, if you will. All right. So we're going to walk through, and this workflow, guys, is super important. So you want to watch the questions. Don't just get like super click happy, and then you come back and you're like, why does this say it's a lease and I'm working with a buyer? So make sure that you just kind of read to get through these first few questions. Then after that, it really does kind of walk you down the path. So your first few questions are going to help you decide the side of representation, where you're at, and kind of what's going on with this file. I would encourage you to start the minute you're actively representing. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, you put the listing in, within a day or so, you come in, you start the transaction, right? That gives Maryland the ability to see the listing agreement and any of those start phase kind of documents to know that A, the listing is there, and B, to make sure everything is compliant on your docs. So this way, mistakes are caught early on and not 3 hours before you hit the closing table, okay? So before we do that, how many of you in the room are coordinators or assistants? So you're gonna be doing this for someone else. Okay, great. So you will have a little box, that's your little blue box, and you'll click that box and you'll choose the agent that you're creating the file for. Now, when you go to My Transactions, it'll show for you because you'll be listed as the coordinator, but you're actually gonna click, try just like support and see if that shows up. We may not have any in there, that's okay. But basically it'll say, are you a coordinator, are you a partner agent, or are you a manager? And you'll just choose, I'm a partner agent or I'm a coordinator. And now you'll always have access to that file, but so will the actual agent logging in. That's provided you have your own ID. If you're logging in as the agent with their name and their ID, then you just go straight through, okay? All right, so we'll keep it really simple today, and we'll say this is a residential deal, so it's a residential property. And sell or sell listing basically means buyer, seller. And then lease or lease listing is landlord, tenant. So we'll keep it really simple and we'll say sell. And now we're gonna ask you about the phase that you're in, okay? Did you just start your transaction? Meaning just shook hands, just signed that listing agreement, just decided to take someone out, got a buyer's rep, gonna look at properties? That's start phase. Showing, makes sense with what it sounds like. Contract, you've accepted an offer or you've made an offer that's been accepted. And then pre-closing, post-closing. So that's obviously later down the road. So hopefully you're starting somewhere between a start and a showing phase. You can click on the showing phase, Melanie. Okay, and then we're gonna ask, who are you representing, buyer or seller? Okay, really simple. Now, if you would have started in a latter phase, maybe you jumped in at contract because the deal just went that fast, it was sold before you put the sign in the yard, then that's perfectly okay. We'll actually even ask you, are you representing both sides in this case? Because we know then there may be some intermediary issues when deals go that fast. And that's usually because you had the buyer before you could even list the property, right? Okay, so we'll say we're representing the buyer here. And then we're gonna say, okay, great, who's the buyer? So we're gonna put our buyer in. First name, last name, and if you've already stored them as a contact, it'll match up. So you've got Bobby Byers over here. You can choose him from your list. These are gonna be your personal contacts that you've added into Backagent. I'll show you where you can do that later on. But if not, first name, last name, email. You don't need to worry about industry and all the rest of this questions. Just first name, last name, email. That gets you into the file, and we can create a transaction. Now, usually here I'll get the question, well, what if there's a husband-wife buyer team, and they're both buying? Start with whoever your primary contact is. So if you deal more with the wife, put her in first, deal more with the husband, whatever that looks like. You can always go in and add 5 or 6 buyers later on, multiple people on that file. We just need the one to kind of get you in the door. Okay, if you'll scroll up just a little bit for me so we get, no, the other way, so we get the full screen on. There we go. Okay, so now you're in this virtual file folder. So think of this page as like a virtual file folder with tabs and documents and things that are happening, just in a virtual sense. This timeline bar, so that green timeline bar that you see here, start, showing, contract, pre-closing, post-closing, those are those phases that we talked about earlier that, as you move into those phases, we're talking 2-3 minutes to answer the questions, load in a doc or two, and then move on, okay? So we started in a showing phase. So we've got some orange tabs above, kind of looks like a little iPhone or an Android telling you something's needed here and it's glowing, right? No matter where you're at on that timeline bar, the goal is to work those tabs and clear them out and get that box to check off as completed. So you'll notice my first one has a little, like an error here telling me, hey, you didn't finish what was here because we kind of skipped it. And that's okay. I could jump back to that phase. I could go forward. I still have to get the data in, whether I start in start phase or post-closing. So starting and waiting till the end doesn't eliminate what you have to do, just makes you have to do it all at once. All right, let's go ahead and jump into contract, Melanie. So you'll see here that it lets me just completely move along the timeline bar, and now it tells me the other 2 phases aren't good. Okay, go ahead and we'll just stay here for a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna start working my tabs. So I'm gonna click on the property tab, and it's gonna let me load a property in. Now, I don't have an IDX tied to this one. Typically, you would just type in an MLS number, and it will say, here's your property, and then you quick loaded it.
So our office ties not
Yes,
IDX?
yes, absolutely. We're just going to quick load. This is what you would do for a commercial property, something that wasn't in HAR or a listing that's not listed yet. Or maybe you want to go ahead and get the listing in. It's a pocket listing, you want it in there, and you know it's going to be 2 more weeks before you have professional photos and staging and things like that done to actually put it in HAR. Then you can start this part and then swap that out later. You just go back in and edit, type in the MLS number, and it'll pull the photos over for you. All right, so we'll set our property, tab grayed out. Now you'll see my showing box is checked because that's really all we needed in the showing phase was what was that property. So now we'll talk about the contacts. And it's going to say if you're under contract, you should probably know who the other side of the file is, right? At least first and a last name. So we'll add our seller in. And you'll notice that matches will start to pull. Now on this case, because this is a vendor contact, you may see lots of people. Maybe it's a seller you've never worked with before, or actually more so on the co-oping side, but it's pulling from a database internal so that you can quickly load those people, okay? So especially on the co-oping agent side. So let's add a seller's agent, and let's do Cynthia Co-op. And maybe you've never worked with Cynthia before, but someone else has. Is she not in there? I'm sorry about that. But someone else has, that match will show. If you work with Cynthia for the first time and you have to fully type her information, well, guess what? Now if somebody else comes back, they can pull from an internal. We only do that with vendors, okay? So only co-oping agents, title reps, lenders, that sort of thing. Everyone else stays private to you. All right. Now you'll also notice here where you can add additional buyers and additional sellers. So we talked about that earlier, so that's basically where you do it. We don't need to do that right now. If you have multiple people you want to add onto the file, internal to your team, something like that, you can add some partners there. Maybe it's a last minute thing and you're going to share it with somebody else, you're going on vacation. You can always add someone else onto your file.
Is there a cost
To load them in? No, so this doesn't actually automatically give them access. This just lists them on your file right now. What you're talking about is Roundtable. We'll kind of jump into Roundtable at the end as kind of an advanced thing, but no, it does not cost. You can invite them in all day long and share with them through that Roundtable. Right now, they're not even getting anything. Until you actually choose to share something to them, they're just listed like on a piece of paper. Yeah, and we'll talk about that though. That's a great point. Okay, so now we'll jump over to our next tab, which is Dates and Info. This is a really important tab, guys. This tab is doing a whole lot for you. I know you're looking at it and you're probably going, well, I don't have to answer all these questions. I already know the answer to all these. I know. But for the time that it takes you to click and answer a few questions, remember, We jumped in midstream here. So these are 2 or 3 questions early on, 2 or 3 questions later on. It's doing a lot of things for you. One, it's creating an entire stack list or doc list for you so that you know exactly what needs to be on this file, what Marilyn's going to require to check it off in the order she needs it in, correctly, all lined out and written and everything's good so she doesn't get 4 different versions of what the contract is called or what this amendment is called. And then it's also putting all of those dates on your calendar that we talked about earlier. So now they'll go show up on your phone. I promise you, all the due diligence dates, you could not leave and go to Google or go to Outlook or iCloud and type all those in any faster than what you can do with these questions, and you're accomplishing lots at one time. So basically what Melanie's doing here is answering questions. Your questions may look a little different than mine, and that's perfectly okay. These are simple questions. What type of property is it? Is it standard, farm, ranch, lot? Just choose standard for us. The ownership status. Is it conventional? Are we going REO? Is the short sale HUD? We'll keep it really easy here and go conventional. Built before 1978. I want to show you something here. If we say yes to this, I want you to take a look at your document count. Right now it's sitting at 3. Now we all know if it's built before 1978, you need a lead base painted in, and we all know this, right? But those are the little things that we also forget to put in with a file. The intermediary, small amendments, little things like that that are really a big deal and they need to be there. So the minute you say yes to this question, watch my documents change to 4. Because now it's saying, okay, don't forget this document. It is required now. All right, sales price, we'll plug that in. Our commission percentage, like I said, some of these questions may or may not, just do 50-50. Or you can do NA, that's fine too. All right, you can track earnest escrow money. Like I said, I'm not sure that all this is live in your site, but these are just basically questions. These are also doing something else that I didn't mention, the exciting part. This is feeding green sheet, okay? So all of this data is feeding into your green sheet, which will dramatically lessen the amount of typing that you have to do inside of green sheet. Okay, and then our financing type will go conventional. So you'll notice my box is all completed here, and now I've got the ability, there we go. All right, why is my submit button not on in this one? Gotcha. So let's click on our documents tab really quick. And we need to load in a couple documents so I can show you what we're going to do here. You should have, let's just go in and exempt them. We can do this. So you have the ability to attach documents here. Melanie's going to exempt them because I just realized we're not on my laptop, so I don't have my stored documents there. There may be some in the actual other. But really quick, while you're doing this, I want to talk about a couple other things. So if you notice over here on this side, you have this little button that says Add Integration. So if you're a Dotloop user, you can click that button and choose Dotloop. It will walk you through, a little GIF pops up and tells you what to do to connect your Backagent and your Dotloop, okay? If you're a ZipForm Plus user, choose ZipForm Plus. It'll walk you through connecting your ZipForm Plus. So that will facilitate creating the loop in Dotloop for you, or it'll allow you to send and pull documents back and forth from ZipForms or Digital Ink through there as well. So that's what that little add integration is. But even if you don't connect the two, you're still creating your documents the way you always would. Okay, so if you just prefer to just jump into Dotloop and do it the way you've always done it, then that's perfectly fine, or jump into ZipForms. But the goal here is to get the documents on file. Is there anything in our inbox? If not, there's nothing in the inbox? Sorry guys, we had to jump on this computer, and I just want to make sure we've got some documents in there. Okay, all right. Okay, well we don't, and that's okay. Can you email one really quick? Yeah, just send it to your Gmail so we can just pull it right in. Just Melanie@backagent.com. If you want to shoot me over a quick email really quick. PDF, right? Anything, yeah, PDF's fine. Okay, so jump back to our transaction tab. We'll go over a few other things while we're talking about this. So while she's going through that, I'll actually, if you want to just log in into your Gmail really quick. Yeah, you're gonna have to, so that we can get the document. because it will take a little bit too long. So while she's going through that, he'll edit this out later for the video. Let's go through a couple questions that we have. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we use Backagent fully for all of our normal users? Dotloop users now? Because I don't know where we are in terms of the implementation.
Okay, so in terms of implementation, right now we've had a couple teams that have been using it. We're fully rolled out with several market centers already, like Heritage, Coastal Bend, Laredo. I imagine Garrett and Teresa will give you the ultimate green light of you're good, everything is there. But in my world, it's ready. It's alive, it's there. Maryland's trained, the staff is trained. So the minute that they say yes, you can run with it.
So we don't know yet.
Ultimately, that's going to be up to them. We will make sure that an answer makes it out to everyone like ASAP. We have another one of these trainings next week, so I would say probably October 1. You should be good to go. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Some of it will. Some of it will. So it will facilitate creating the loop, and it'll pull some of your information in. It's not going to fully duplicate everything, but whatever is still missing there, you can kind of finish in Dotloop. But Backagent should definitely be your starting phase because that's your early on workflow. And some of the other things we're going to talk about, like checklists and things like that, you're definitely going to want those early on because those are before you would even get to documents, really, outside of maybe a buyer's shop and a listing agreement. Yes, ma'am.
So I am a
Okay.
so
You should be able to. Yep, because you'll do your CDA and everything through here. She was asking, is there a reason to still need to log into Dotloop? And technically, no, there's not. So actually, the Heritage office, which is kind of like a sister office to you guys in San Antonio, oddly enough, they primarily used zip forms. So it was a really nice switch for them because they were going into Dotloop only to load the docs they had already done in zip forms so that it would feed Green Sheet and feed compliance.
so just be real careful about this. Backagent is supposed to be I'm not sure where we stand on
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good.
Yep.
news.
Yep.
All right. 'Cause
So
at one point that was we had it copied over.
yeah,
to
no, we've
Dotloop, but I
spent
was like,
extensive time with her, so she's
do not
ready.
wanna do
Nope.
that.
Nope.
I just want to go to one place. So what I'm hearing you say, Dotloop for us is going away. Staying in Backagent.
Unless you use it to create your forms. So if you're using Dotloop to create your documents and you prefer that over any other document creation platform, then all you would do is you can create that loop, create your forms in Dotloop, and then pull those into Backagent for compliance, just like you would with zip forms. So neither one of them will go away. It just now becomes your choice of what do you prefer to use. Maryland is doing approvals out of here. Yes. Approvals are out of here, CDAs are out of here. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so her question was, can you create your documents from here? If you've linked your zip forms to it, yes, because we have a zip form embedded interface, but you're still using zip forms or Dotloop. We don't do document creation, okay? Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
Have you looked into
Right.
on Kelly?
Yes, yes. So we were just in Austin 2 weeks ago, and so we went through the whole what this will look like when everything starts to switch over, being in the App Store and all of that. So yeah, so you're absolutely golden there. Everything will just shift over. And basically when Green Sheet does fully go away, we'll just have a direct integration with KW Connect. So it should be seamless for you. Yes, ma'am.
So if we do.
No, at some point it will have to go through Backagent. Maryland will only be doing compliance in one area. Yes, sir.
What about templates?
That will stay the same because you're still creating there. So when you log into Dotloop or you log into ZipForms, all of your templates and things are still there. You just pull them over. We're going to show you that. That's what we're doing. We needed to get a document in. Okay, so we have a document on the desktop now? Okay, great. Okay, so what I want to show you here is when you're ready to attach documents, okay? So whether you're pulling documents in from Dotloop, from ZipForms, from DocuSign, and I'll show you how to set, we'll go through like tiny things. I just want to stay in workflow right now on how to set those things up. But you'll have an option, several of them actually, and it will say, do you want to upload from your computer? Do you want to pull from that inbox we talked about earlier, that email address you created? You'll also have one that says .loop and ZipForms and DocuSign, so you'll have all those options, right? And wherever those documents are, you pick the appropriate option for you. So if it's Digital Ink and ZipForms, you pull from there. If it's DocuSign with Digital Ink, pull from there. If it's .loop, click, you're going to pull from there, okay? We're going to just show you uploading from your hard drive. So let's just say you went totally old school. Maybe you got these filled out, wet signature, you scan them, they're sitting on your desktop. How do I get them in Backagent? Really, no matter which way you go, the goal here is to just pull a document in. It's going to load it and optimize the file, take it a couple seconds, and that's basically the kind of the Willy Wonka, it's coming from one system to another, so that takes a second. If you've sent it to your inbox, that's instantaneous because it's already digitized. So I highly suggest getting them from your email into your inbox and then loading them later. All right, so now we've got our document in. If this were multiple pages, you would see multiple pages. So if that were maybe the contract and the financing addendum and your property mandatory membership and homeowners association, let's say you had all those documents all together, we would break those all up into individual pages. So you could say, these 3 are my contract. These 4, belong here. So we're going to add a page, click create the document, and we're going to drop that into its right placeholder. It was our contract, so that's all we had left, and save. So now you'll notice that all of our documents are completed, okay? So now it's going to prompt you to submit this file. Scroll down to the bottom and let's create our funding request. So you're going to have your submit button will light up. You'll click it when that lights up, and it'll bring you right here to create your funding request. All right. So now you'll be able to type in the percentage they're making. It'll go through. We kind of nulled all of those things out earlier. But this is all of your information. So your bold, your KW Family Fund, KW Cares, Errors and Omissions, all of that's tied to your profile. So that's a little bit different for everyone. So we're just kind of showing a generic version of it here. But ideally, that would pull in if you've already got those things set or the staff do. If not, you can go in and edit them, right? The only thing you can't change is what your overall split is with the company. That will be directly tied to your profile. Okay, so maybe type in 50 there, and then let's choose our table funding option. And we'll click create funding request. Whoops. Oh, you got to pull your title company information in. That's what we didn't have in there yet. Mm-hmm. It should all be tied in already for you guys, yeah. All right, sorry about that. We should just be able to plug in a quick email. All right, there we go. Sorry, I should have loaded our title company person in first so that would go through. Okay, so now that you've submitted, right, so you've basically clicked submit and said, here's all my funding information. That just went to the MCAs and to Maryland so they can start review processes. And remember, we're still at this contract phase, right? So now it's immediately going to pop up and say, let's create a green sheet. Now, I don't have a green sheet because I'm not a KW agent, so mine's not showing me the full module that you would see, but it basically immediately now pops up and says, do your green sheet. It will show you your green sheet, and if you click initiate your green sheet, it may actually, so it'll show you what you already have in it, and then you'll finish filling out, it's an open interface for you, you'll finish filling out anything that it didn't grab, and then you'll click send a green sheet. You'll take your green sheet ID and plug it in. Sorry, it launched you into it. Click back. Yeah, there we go. And then it'll give you your green sheet ID at the end, like it always does, and you just type it in. Okay, so now compliance has your green sheet ID. They've got this file linked to the green sheet. Everything's in the green sheet. So KWRI has the information they need, and everything's there. Okay? So now you're sitting in this pre-closing phase, and it's basically maybe going to ask you for some more contact information. If you didn't have the title company in yet, which you would have, it may ask you for that. If you need to make some adjustments, you're there. Your final dates and info questions, when are you really going to close? If that date slips from when you originally said, we'll remind you to get the amendment. A new document requirement will pop up. And then we have some just general questions that may or may not be specific to your office. I know we did this for Heritage, would they be a good fit for KW? Because maybe there's some internal stuff going on, talking about the co-oping agent. But basically, you just kind of finish out your questions. And once you've got everything completed, there we go. Yeah, you're gonna have to plug in that last contact really quick. There we go. All right, so once you've got everything completed, it's gonna light up a button that's gonna tell you finish. And you're gonna click finish, and that means I'm done. You shouldn't be finishing this file though until your post-closing docs are in, okay? So once you've got the HUD loaded, whether that happens here or if the MCAs do that, however that normally happens, once that's done and everything's done, you've been funded, HUD's in, everything's good, or the disclosures, then you'll click finish, okay? Now what I do want to do at the very end is let's jump in checklist really quick. Okay, so in the checklist section, this checklist can be predefined. It already is kind of predefined, but you can go in and customize this checklist on an individual basis, or you can also do it on a team level. So if you want certain things prompted that are even date driven, you can set that up, okay? So we have just kind of a generic list here right now. You don't have to use it, it's not required. Nothing on that checklist is required, but you can make items required. You can set them for your coordinators, for your team members, for yourself. So I just wanted you to see where that was, and it's pretty easy. There's a managed checklist, and you just kind of walk through it. Yes, sir?
So those dates are relative.
Yes,
So we can set, hey,
absolutely.
activity that happened.
As long as the activity is tied back to the transaction. So for example, 3 days after contract, 3 days after the listing start phase is completed, or before you want something to happen, yes, not only will it put those dates on the calendar, but it will trigger a required response, and that tab will light up, indicating to the user that they need to check that they've done that.
Can you assign that to somebody?
You can't necessarily assign it, at least not yet. We're moving toward the ability to assign it, but it should be whoever's working in the realm of your transaction.
What's the ETA?
Probably the end of the year. So we have kind of our 4.0s rolling out. So probably end of the year, first part of January, Q1, we're coming out with what's called follow-ups, where you'll be able to distinctly say, I want this going to Bob and this going to Sally, kind of thing. Right up here. So just like your tab at the very top, like documents, dates and info, anything else, that checklist tab will light up yellow, or orange, sorry, saying, hey, you have a checklist item to do. And then if it's a date-driven item, it's also on your calendar.
Okay, is it, okay, the checklist,
Yes, it's specific to each deal.
so every day,
Only if you've made things required. No, you don't have to check each deal. No. It's, those date-driven items are also on your calendar, so you can see those as well. Yep. And it kind of bubbles up to a dashboard when you click on and view your My Transactions as well. Any other questions about what we just did before I jump into a few other pieces?
Just to clarify, so there's a master I can look at, I've got 3 items, I'll
Yes,
do it today.
yes, absolutely. It doesn't actually send reminders yet, but the way anyone else would typically do it is because you're subscribing to that, you can set your reminders like I set mine through Apple, and I'd say I want to know all of my dates. I want to be reminded 15 minutes in advance or 24 hours in advance, so that kind of thing. But a true reminder system is actually something that is on the board. I think when our new 4.0 rolls out, which is just a slightly cleaned up version, streamlined version of this, that will be announced at NAR and then actually rolled out at the end of the year, probably first part of the new year. The true dashboard will showcase that a whole lot more than what it does right now. So that'll be a really cool thing.
Will your 4.0 also
It's going to be fully mobile responsive, not an app, but fully mobile responsive, absolutely. And we can actually jump in if you want once we're done with this class, and I'll give you a quick little rundown and anyone else that wants to stay to kind of see what's coming. I just don't want to completely distract from kind of where we are with that right now. This video will be recorded, and we'll have another live recording. We'll have another live class next week, and then we'll probably record that again.
No paper or
Nope.
anything to start, you do this.
Nope. It's going to be the video. And I promise you, once you've done it like twice, it totally clicks in. It will be, it's so much easier than what you think. You're absorbing a whole lot at one time, and you're seeing it all at once. It really is easier. Yes, ma'am?
I just have a quick question. I'm
Uh-huh.
one of the beta testers, and
Okay.
like once we integrate, Melanie, that it's all automatically uploaded,
No, you should be able to pull multiple files, so we'll have to take a look at that. Now, it's not automatically just going to go from Dotloop into the right placeholder in there.
Once I do the integration, ideally, all the files.
You should be able to click multiple files and pull them in and then drop them.
Letting me do that. And the second subsequent question. Yeah, I'll remember that.
Okay, well, that's okay. I'm going to be here for a while, so if that comes back, just make a note of that, and we'll talk. And that could just be an issue on Dotloops, and that we need to just kind of get with them and go, hey, why are they not able to pull this in bulk? Because you should, for sure. Okay, do we have any other just general questions about walking through the workflow? Because if not, I want to pop in and kind of talk about Roundtable that you mentioned earlier, which is sharing this with outside parties. And then we can just kind of, I'm here, so we can kind of hang out if we need to and go through it. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Well, you're going to click the submit button. So once you get to contract and you've done everything that's required, it's going to pop up like you can see on the screen right now, and you'll click submit, create that funding request, do your green sheet, and it automatically goes to Marilyn. Yep. So it's 2 clicks for you, and Marilyn has it. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Fully executed. Yeah. So all you need in Backagent is the fully executed, whatever you feel is the final. Now, will you possibly need to go back and make an edit to that later on down the line? But once everyone has signed it and everyone is in agreement of the document, that's when it goes into Backagent, fully executed. So this is your compliance home, not kind of the working piece.
My other question was,
She's still working on that.
need it, you know, like it's not
Okay. Marilyn should have everything to you at this point. So if you feel like there's really still something missing, they're still making some slight tweaks. Let's.
well, like the KWRI wire form.
Okay, so then let's maybe have that conversation with Melanie kind of after the fact, then we'll involve Marilyn and make sure that Marilyn's not missing something that you guys still needs to be there. Yes, ma'am.
So, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Documented in Dotloop,
Yes.
and it's not on this list, it's not let us.
Oh, no. No. You can add as many things as you want. Click back to the Documents tab. So let's click Add Document and grab that same file. So let's say there's something on your computer in Dotloop, in your email, whatever, that you want in the transaction that's not required. So when you get the document in here and you click Add a Page, Create Document, it's going to take you to this big long list, and you can choose any other category you want, collateral, what have you. There's tons of categories here. Maybe it's a closing gift, it's a clue report, it's a copy of a credit report, something like that. And if you don't see the category you want, you can choose other. So it's kind of broken down: contract, amendment, addendum, collateral. And you can name it whatever you want. Pictures of this, my closing gift receipt. You can track whatever you want. And they actually have the ability, because it's still part of the transaction, so when Marilyn gets it, she can click approve all collateral and all extra things that I didn't require, so that she doesn't have to actually go through them. And it just kind of says, move those out of my view. They're still in the transaction, but I don't have to look through all of them. All right, any other questions on this?
Do you know us to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
Because I actually.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
like the HOA docs that
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, she. Yeah. No. From a Backagent standpoint, yes, she knows, and if she doesn't, we will definitely reiterate that today, that she can click approve all collateral.
Approve it.
Yes, sir. You can replace it, you can remove it. So if it's a required, well, it doesn't leave Dotloop. You're just basically getting a copy of it in here. Right. Yeah, everything you create in Dotloop, all the historical documents, we're basically just, we're not really taking it away from Dotloop, we're just getting the signed version of it. So you still have all that historical in there. That should all still be there. No. What, wait, ask that question again? No, you will do all your modifications in Dotloop and you'll replace what's in Backagent, yes. So that's why you really want to wait until you know it's fully executed. Not maybe the final version. You may have to replace a couple of versions like on a contract, but for the most part, when you feel like I've got the document fully executed, that's when it goes in Backagent. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Let's say, like, with Maryland,
You're going to load in whatever she has listed, and some do it one way and some do it another way. And I'm sorry, I'm just not 100% familiar with what she's required at this point. But if she wants seller's disclosure signed by the seller, and then in contract she's requiring it again signed by both parties, it will pop up that way. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Yes, ma'am. No, go right ahead. It's broken down. So if, Melanie, if you scroll a little bit, you can see. So it's broken down by phases. So as you click through those phases, so for example, you're in the start phase, it's going to ask for all the listing documents if it's a listing file. If it's a buyer file, it's going to ask for, buyer's rep, whatever else you guys require. Then when you move into the contract phase, now the next section will start to populate. So you can kind of overlook them and see for the most part. But if you jump in day one, and this is kind of one of those things that I talked about earlier that I'll re-stress now. If you jump in day one to Backagent, and this file is already completed, and you're closing on Friday, but you're just now jumping into Backagent, and you jump to pre-closing or contract and immediately just try to start loading documents in, and you haven't gone through the questions yet, then you will be missing placeholders, okay? Because it's super reactive to the way that you are responding to the system. So if you haven't loaded in certain contacts yet, then we may not know that it's an intermediary at this point, okay? So if you didn't put the listing site in yet, and you're the buyer's agent, but it's an in-house listing, and you jump to the documents tab, and you're like, where's my intermediary folder? Why is it not here? You're not going to see it yet because you didn't respond to the questions. So no matter where you jump in at, work those tabs left to right so you get that doc list the right way. Really quick. For now, we are working on some stuff maybe down the line over the next 12 months or so, but for now, no, you'll still do it that way.
So where's Maryland's
She's Dotloop and Backagent right now.
and Backagent?
So at some point, yes, at some point, there's going to have to be a cutoff. Ultimately, that will be for leadership to make the decision on. That hasn't been relayed to me yet. It's up and running. This is our final training this week and next week. So in my world, it's ready to go, and Maryland is ready.
I thought like today was like
I'm not sure. I haven't seen her yet or talked to her.
Most people don't know that this is all changing on the compliance side. I just texted Bozar telling me
Yeah, so we came out, I guess, probably the first time about 4 or 5 months ago when we did this. But yeah, so I mean, we need to get aggressive with what that cutoff date is, because ultimately that's what's going to really streamline things, not only for you guys, but for the staff as well. The least amount of time that Maryland has to live in two worlds and the MCA department has to live in two worlds, the better. Then everything is just one way. And I know we didn't want to do it over the summer because obviously that's the busiest time, but we're kind of on, we're on the downslope of that now. So really, ideally, October is that cutoff turnover time, in my opinion. So that way it's before the holidays and before you guys pick up and get busy again. You know what I mean? Like it's the perfect time to make the change. Yes? Yes. Yours is for this market center only. Now, other market centers do this as well, but you won't see their world. You'll only see for this market center and the business centers attached. All right, guys. Any other general questions? If not, I was going to touch on, I'll kind of hang back and I want to show Roundtable and a few other things. Yeah, so we're going to have to redo this next week anyway, because we didn't have documents on here. We didn't have other things. So this is not going to be a clean training. So I'm coming next Wednesday. We'll be totally ready and I'll have documents in there. I didn't think about switching to your laptop, that none of my documents were in there. Yeah, so that version will be the version we really want to record. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to show Roundtable. So if you need to go, that's fine. I'll break for about a minute and a half and let those of you that need to exit. But now I'm just going to kind of show some advanced features and then we'll go through some more Q&A kind of stuff. So one of the features that we didn't talk about yet with Backagent is Roundtable. So Roundtable is a client vendor portal that you can use to invite clients and vendors into. So it's kind of exactly like what it sounds. Do you want to open a browser and log into Roundtable? Just do the demo one. demo.backagent.net/roundtable. .net. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then you can log in with Melissa at backagent.com. Unless you know your login for support. No. Okay. Let me type in my password really quick. Okay. All right, so let's jump back into the Market Center tab really quick. So how we get here. So we'll talk about what Roundtable is and then how we get here. It's not a place for you, so keep that in mind, right? This is when you have a client that you know is tech savvy enough and they would benefit from virtually following along, you can invite them in. Or if you have a co-oping agent or a title rep or a vendor or somebody that's like, hey, can you, and you know that it's the right fit for them, you can invite them in. So here's how you invite them in. So click on Share Transaction. And we're on the Context tab, but there's a couple ways to do it. And you can choose Roundtable Sharing. So it's going to show you all the people on the file. So anyone you've added to the file as a contact. And then let's say, for example, we want to share to our title agent. Let's just say we're going to share to title or share to the co-oping agent. We have email addresses for them. And then it's going to say, here's the documents you have on file so far. You have this one and maybe some notes that you've added, update shares. If it's the first time they've been invited in, they're going to get a welcome email. And it's going to say, so-and-so agent at KW Memorial has invited you in. Click here, create a login. If they've already been in and you're just sharing new docs to them, then they just get an email that says, someone shared a new document to you in the Roundtable. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? It's a link. It's actually a link. So if you kill the link in Backagent, it kills the link for them. Okay, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. So we're going to click Update Shares. Ted at tedtitle.com just got an email inviting him into the roundtable. Okay, click on roundtable. And he's going to log in like you just watched me do. And it's going to bring him into a KW branded portal. So where mine's Backagent in green, yours is KW in red. It's going to show the agent's face and information, the primary agent on the file, so whoever's primary. And then Ted, the title guy, is going to see the deals that he has going on with you. So if you've invited him in on multiple deals because you work with Ted all the time, then he may see 3 or 4 deals that he's working on with you. And then let's pick one. Just click on 7 Hawksbill Place. Yeah. And it's going to show him a photo of the property. It's going to show him property information based on what you've already answered in Backagent. So if you haven't answered those questions yet, then he's not going to get a whole lot of information just yet. But as you feed Backagent, it feeds this automatically. Click on contacts. Ted will be able to see all the contact information. We'll suppress some information, like if you invite a co-oping agent in, we'll suppress your contacts, contact information, your client's contact information. But they can see the name. They can see that anyway. Dates and info. There's all those due diligence dates, all right? The ones that you answered those questions for in Backagent, and they made it to your calendar. They're also on a calendar for the MCAs to see. Now they're on a calendar here for your client or your vendor to see, okay? And then documents, they can see the documents. They can click and download them. This is actually a link, but if they download the document, then yeah, they've got the version of it. But ideally, if they keep it here and they view it, especially from a client standpoint, so I guess just to kind of break in really quick, think about this from the perspective of it's closing, and maybe you've always burned a copy of all those documents onto a DVD, and you walk in a closing, you're like, here's all your closing documents, thank you so much. I always tell everyone, get them a real gift instead, and then remind them that they have this roundtable login. Because the cool thing here is every time they log into this, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, I mean, I just logged into mine little less than a year ago because we decided to put a poll in. And when I logged into my roundtable, the realtor that helped buy our house 5 years ago immediately called me, and he's like, hey, why are you downloading the survey? And I was like, well, because we're putting a poll in and need a copy of my survey. And so he gets a ping. He can see that notification. He'll get an email saying they just downloaded a survey. So it is a huge opportunity for you down the line from retention and return business to be able to go, hey, I noticed that you logged into the roundtable and we're trying to download some documents. Something else I can help you with. Are you listing your home again? Or are you putting in a pool? I mean, what's going on? He's called me multiple times for home warranties, and then he's picking with me about, because I'm breaking stuff. But it's a great way, it's usually the garage door, but it's a great way to just have that continued, outside of your regular marketing efforts, to have that continued personal touch. And on top of that, when they go to these documents, home warranties, stuff like that, I mean, I always say virtualize the kitchen drawer for them. At the end, say, hey, give me a copy of all of, all the appliances you bought, and I'll load all that in for you. You take a few minutes to do that, and now every time they need a warranty, they're logging into that roundtable, and they're getting access to that document. They're reminded of your face. They're reminded of your value add. They're reminded of KW. They're reminded of all of that, so that hopefully when they do decide to purchase another property, you're already in their mind, not whatever recent, mailer just popped in or, thing that got left on their door. Okay? Yes? No. It's all part of Backagent. So you can invite anyone you want. The other thing that I didn't mention with a roundtable is, let's say you invite your client and you invite the co-oping agent. Each person has their own unique view into roundtable. So if I invite my client, I'm probably going to share everything with them, right? Because I want them to see everything. But on the co-oping agent, I may not want to share a copy of the credit report or the third-party financing addendum, things like that. So you can be selective as to who sees what in the roundtable. Yes?
On that, do you buy role?
Well, it's kind of not necessarily the view by role. You'll choose on each deal what you want, who you want to get what. Because it's a click share, so if you're sharing to the co-oping agent and here's all 15 documents, you'll just go share this one, that one, and that one. So it won't automatically know only share those because it doesn't automatically share anything. You're kind of choosing. And if you accidentally share something and you immediately notice it, you can kill the link and then they no longer have it. So unless they jumped in and immediately downloaded it, then you've removed that from their view. Mhm. We are. We are. So we're actually going to be doing that, the third-party authentication like that, probably by January, even on Backagent. So where you'll be able to log in with, Facebook and things like that. Yeah, for sure. The world's kind of gone there. All right. Any other questions on Backagent Roundtable? We'll be here again next week. So if you just want to come and do this again. Next week, now that I know that I need to use this computer to record, I'll make sure we have documents already loaded in it so we don't have that break like that. I apologize.
One question.
Mhm.
If you add in addendum to property subject to mandatory homeowner, are you going to add in the dates on the checklist?
No, those are dates that will either be preset by you or that you've answered the question. So it's not actually reading your document and creating dates. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, it's not going to read the document and see those dates, but you'll answer them through a question and answer. Let me turn this mic off. Yes, well, actually, they weren't yet. We were recording.